Hello everyone. It's great to see all of you guys here today. So, my name is Feng Chenglang, and you can also call me Ronnie. I come from the Communication University of China. So, before I begin, I want to ask you guys a question. How many of you are graduating this year? Okay, so for those who are graduating this year, have you ever had one of those moments during the graduation season where you suddenly felt scared? I do. Everyone around us is saying congratulations, and you smile, you nod, you say thank you, but late at night you are still refreshing the job websites. You are still looking at the maps of the cities that you have moved to, and you are still reading the messages that you do not know how to reply. And somewhere deep inside in your heart, you are thinking one question: where am I actually going next? Graduation is supposed to feel like a new beginning, but sometimes it feels more like being pushed into a wide and unfamiliar river, and the water is flowing, the world is opening, but somehow you cannot really clearly see your own. So today, I want to ask one question. What does flow mean when life no longer feels smooth? Maybe flow is not the absence of resistance. Maybe flow is the way we keep moving through it. I'm graduating this year too, and recently I actually keep thinking about one image. It was in a classroom about 120 kilometers away from where we are today. Back then, I have written 6 words on my desk. The Communication University of China, 中国传媒大学. It was not just the name of a university. It is a coordinate. It was the only direction I could still see when I felt lost. At that point in my life, I had just returned to mainland China for school, and honestly, I was falling really behind. Sitting at my desk, I often felt like everyone else has already moved far ahead, while I was still standing at the edge of the water, trying to learn how to get in. Maybe you had a moment like me too, and you have somewhere you really want to go, but every day, the reality reminds you that you are not there yet. Back then, every time I want to give up, I would look at a school name, 中国传媒大学, on my desk, because it reminded me of one thing. I was not simply struggling in place, I'm still facing a direction. And years later, I really go there. And now I'm about to graduate from here. Looking back, I finally understand the famous saying of our school. This is the end and also the beginning. 这里是终点，也是起点. The destination I once tried so hard to reach has now become another starting point of another journey. And that was when I started to understand flow differently. Flow is not always life carrying you gentle forward. Sometimes, flow is when you feel resistance, but still choose to move with direction. My life has always been a story of flowing. I was born in Guangzhou. Later, I went to Hong Kong. Then I returned to Jiangmen for school. And years later, I went to Beijing for college. For a long time, I thought that I was simply changing cities, changing schools, changing environments. But now I realize that those places were not just geographic coordinates, they were emotional coordinates, they were different forms of flow. Guangzhou was my natural flow. It is where my life river starts. When I was little, if I love something, I follow it. If I want something, I believe that as long as I work hard, I could get it. Later, I grew up in Hong Kong. If Guangzhou was my natural flow, then Hong Kong was the first wider current I had entered. The world suddenly became bigger, faster, and more complicated. There are new rules, new people, and many other things that I have never experienced before. At first, I thought entering a bigger world would make me braver or understand myself better, but the truth was totally different. After I arrived in Hong Kong, I became more lost. The world around me became bigger, but my inner sense of directions became smaller. That was the first time I realized that flow does not always take us forward in the way that we expect. Sometimes you can be moving and still feel lost, and sometimes you can enter a bigger world and still lose sight for yourself. That was my lost flow. Then, the pandemic came. The whole world seems to stop overnight. Everything outside me seems to stop. School, plans, routines, and the future I had imagined. In that pause, I finally have time to look at myself. Again and again, there was one sentence keep flowing in my mind. I cannot keep drifting like this. I still have a dream. I love hosting, I love speaking, I love telling a story on the stage just like what I'm doing right now. I hope that one day my voice could be heard by more people. And I hope that my stories will not only be used to prove myself, and I hope my voice could give someone a little light when they felt lost, a little courage when they felt afraid, and one more reason to keep going. That turning point was actually not dramatic. It was not like a fairy tale. There was no applause, no spotlight, no one walked up to me and tell me that you can do it. There's only me quietly say to myself that I do not want to give up myself anymore. And later, I came back from Hong Kong to Jiangmen. If Guangzhou was my natural flow, Hong Kong was my lost flow, then Jiangmen was where I truly began to experience the resistant flow. I was facing a completely different learning environment again. The exam system, the study methods, the academic foundation that many of my classmates already had, all of it was something that I have to rebuild from the beginning. At first, my grades were really bad. Honestly, I even scored 0 marks in my mathematics test, and my other subject is also a mess. I didn't know where to start. It felt like everyone else has moved far ahead while I was still trying to learn how to get into the float. So I started from the very beginning. 1 equation, 1 pages, 1 question, 1 mistake at a time. Every day, I felt like it was too slow. Every day, I felt behind. But every time I look at the name on my desk, the Communication University of China, I tell myself, then I will start from here. Half years later, my total score reached about 600. It is really a long way for me. Going with the flow can be easy. It is much more easier than going against the flow, but comfort is not always clarified. Sometimes going against the flow is heavier, but more honest, because every stroke reminds you that I'm not simply carried by the water, I'm still choosing where I want to go. Then I really got into the Communication University of China and came to Beijing. Beijing was a destination I thought I had reached, but later I realized that Beijing was not the end of the river. I had not entered a calm sea. I had entered a river that was faster, louder, rougher, and more crowded. In a way, I had entered another kind of flow, 北漂. The experience of drifting, struggling, and trying to find a place for yourself in Beijing. When classes first began, I thought we were all standing at the same starting point, and we were all freshmen. But very soon I realized that the flow was not as calm as I thought. Some classmates spoke English more naturally, some of them have a stronger knowledge base, and some of them respond much faster in class. I knew I had my own strength, but I have to admit that in professional learning, I'm already left behind. That feeling was really familiar. I felt it before in Jiangmen, but this time, I was already standing in a place I once dreamed of, and still, I have to learn how to flow in it. That was when I realized that sometimes what we call arrival is just the beginning of the next flow. But slowly, one thing became clear. My flow was never about arriving at university or proving that I was good enough. My flow is about finding a way to keep moving toward the person I wanted to become. For me, the direction has always been expression, not expression just to perform or to be seen, but expression as a way to connect, to encourage, and to make someone feel less alone. So when I stand here today, I know that I'm still in my flow, not because everything has become easy, but because I'm still moving towards something that matters to me. So now when I look back, these cities are no longer just place I have lived. There are different parts of flow in my life river. Guangzhou was the natural flow. The water was clear and the direction was simple. I only need to follow my heart and flow toward it. Hong Kong was the lost flow where the world suddenly opened up, but I lost my directions in the waves. And Jiangmen was a quite difficult riverway. It was where I began to go against the flow. Every stroke reminds me that if I felt heavy, I'm going the right way. And the name on my desk became my compass. And Beijing, the destination I once dreamed of, turned out to be a much larger opening. Flow did not stop when I arrived. It only became much more faster, wider, and more uncertain, with strong waves, bigger ships, and a farther horizon. And what I really had to learn was not how to move smoothly all the time, but to stay in my own flow in the middle of change. That is why I believe going against the flow is still flow. Not because struggling itself is beautiful, but because resistance sometimes proves that we are no longer drifting. We are still choosing, we are still adjusting, and we are still moving. Today, every one of us is in the flow. Some of us are living familiar places. Some of us are entering a new environment. Some of us feel lost, under pressure or standing at the place we once dreamed of, only to realize it is not the finish line, but the beginning of another flow. And maybe that is what flow really means. It is not life carrying us forward without any resistance. It is the way we keep moving through change and the way we find directions when the river becomes wider, faster, and louder. So please remember, the direction of the water does not define you, but the direction of the paddle does. And sometimes going against the flow is not the opposite of flow. It is the moment you stop drifting and finally find your own way to flow. In the end, may all of us find our own flow, and may all of us have the courage to go against the flow when our directions calls us. Thank you very much.